My workshop is pretty awesome, but like a lot of homemaker spaces, it is tiny. For years, I've wanted a resin 3D printer to take my custom builds to the next level, but as you can see, my space is pretty maxed out. Or rather, it was. The time has finally come to add an SLA printer to my workshop, but this is nowhere near as simple as dropping it on a table like I did for my FDM printers. If you've ever looked into resin printing, you know I don't just need room for the printer. Further, fumes are a big issue with resin printing, and I basically live next door to my workshop. Resin and isopropyl alcohol vapors aren't just unpleasant. Long-term exposure can cause a permanent chemical sensitivity that ends your hobby for good. But of course, my workshop doesn't actually have sane windows that can be sealed with a hose, so like a lot of apartment or basement workshops, I can't just run an exhaust outside. I also share my workshop with my furry landlords who absolutely do not give a about safely handling resin. Securing the space when not in use is non-negotiable. So, to be able to actually use the cool new resin printer, I need to design and build a custom ventilated cabinet in a room the size of a walk-in closet without woodworking on a sane budget. While I'm at it, it would be pretty great if it could also be used for sanding and painting, and cooler still if it could be fully automated. And if everything goes to plan, I'll open source the whole thing. How hard can it be? Every design project will have at least a couple of constraints, but this one has all of them. In the context of the room, this opening looks big, but in reality, it's not. The space is tall, but only 120 centimeters wide. I could push the depth to about 70 centimeters, but that starts interfering with the rest of the room's workflow. This thing has to hold a lot of stuff. Not only does it have to house the printer, the wash station, and the cure oven, it also has to hold all the consumables, the IPA, all the resin, the gloves, the paper towels, a contamination bin. This isn't so much an enclosure as it is an entire resin printing ecosystem, and it has to fit in a space not much bigger than me. That said, I do kind of know of a place that specializes in cheap furniture for tiny spaces. I've recreated the corner of the workshop that the cabinet has to go in, so I can see exactly how much room I actually have to play with. Since I couldn't find anything pre-built that fit the space well, I chose deep wall cabinets for the top and matching base cabinets for the bottom, capped off with a perfectly sized countertop. Obviously, not all resin printers look and function the same. That said, I will be building my cabinet to house my new Formlabs Form 4, Form Wash, Form Cure. The Form Cure is the least worrisome as it doesn't really produce any fumes on its own and opens from the front, but the Form 4 and Form Wash both have additional height requirements. I could put the Cure on a simple shelf, but the Form 4 needs to pull out so I can open the lid and actually use it. A heavy-duty low drawer gives me full access, while the drawer beneath it gives me storage for consumables, and doors seal it off for safety. Form Wash needs a ton of overhead to fully open, so the countertop is the only feasible place for it. Custom cut acrylic for visibility and cleanability, combined with MDF backing panels for structure, will create a fully enclosed middle section. I designed the front with 3 doors instead of 2. This handles an offset between the top and bottom sections and provides extra protection while using it for sanding and painting. So far, this is a lovely organized box, but organized boxes don't filter fumes. The inline fan and carbon filter are what bring the magic, but there are a lot of options out there. To maximize efficiency, we want the biggest possible volume of carbon to absorb those VOCs that'll still fit inside the cabinet, while a reasonably powerful EC inline fan will give us the best balance of suction, size, and price. Mounting them to the bottom of the upper section makes sense because it keeps the heaviest components anchored to something structural and puts the intake directly above the working area. The carbon filter will act as the intake. Before the air reaches it, it'll pass through G4 panel filters to catch particulates, which will be particularly useful when doing sanding and painting. From there, the fan pushes the filtered air through a short duct into a hole in the backsplash, which serves to create a rear plenum behind the cabinet. That vertical channel guides the air back down before it re-enters into the working area. This obviously isn't industrial scale filtration. One pass through a carbon filter won't leave the air perfectly clean, but because the same air cycles through repeatedly, each pass reduces the concentration further until it drops to a much safer level. To make this all work, I'll need to cut appropriately sized holes in the countertop and back of the lower cabinet, completing the airflow path. I know I sound confident, but looking at all this, I'm a little nervous. But the core design is locked. I still have plans for a full suite of sensors and automation, but none of that matters if the cabinet doesn't fit together. It's time to get off the computer, cross my fingers, and start building. This may look like flat pack chaos, but there is actually an order of operations to this. Since the space is so small, I can't really put things along the bottom first because that kind of makes getting to the wall then quite difficult. There's no real way to get in from the sides here, so I have to approach everything somewhat strategically. I definitely have to follow this order quite carefully, or I'm probably gonna have to rip things out and do it all over again. I'd like to avoid that. I'm gonna try and be careful.
Always one black and one.
Oh. Thankfully, all IKEA cube-shaped objects assemble pretty similarly, so they tend to get easier the more you have to make. Time to invalidate some warranties. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking to, cut something that you can't uncut. If I mess this up, then I gotta buy a whole another one of these things. Let's make a bit of a mess, shall we? Before the lower cabinets can be put into place, I have to add some additional pieces so it'll actually sit flush with the wall and create our plenum. I reckon you could use anything stable, but I'm using 5mm thick EVA foam so it'll function a bit like a gasket. It doesn't need to make an airtight seal, but ideally you don't want any gaping holes. I'm gonna call that in. Once you've been doing this for a couple of days, it starts to feel like IKEA furniture is a lot like giant Lego for homeowners in a way. Or, so I thought. Hands up if you thought the IKEA build was gonna be the worst part of this project. Not me. It turns out all of these little peggy things are kind of important, and I didn't have them in the cat, so. You gotta take off the door, the switch of the drawers, switch the hinge on the door. This is ridiculous. I would love it if everything could fit. Ka-chunk. Test number 1. Door's closed. Test number 2. Drawer's open. Amazing. We're getting somewhere now. You can almost imagine the 3D printers. Almost. Soon. The airflow path is almost there, but I still need some holes in the countertop to complete the circuit. It's finally starting to look like something I can put stuff inside, which is good because I am so desperate to finally unload some of this stuff into the cabinet. Big boy. I'm going to oh. Oh my God, wow. This might be the most beautiful 3D printer I've ever seen. All right. Okay. It ain't tipping over. It ain't breaking. It's a good start. I think that's good enough. Oh boy. Given that the whole point of this cabinet is to house the Form 4, it fitting inside is a pretty crucial part of its function. And once again, hidden IKEA furniture details are coming back to haunt me. Thankfully, I am not easily defeated. Oh yeah. I think that'll do. But I think I might need to pump the brakes a bit. In an effort to try and save myself some grief disassembling and reassembling things yet again further down the line, I think I need to step back and figure out the electronics. Gold star for showing restraint, Tally. Okay. Let's talk about the nervous system for this thing. I want this cabinet to be smart, but I also want it to be clean. No wires running between sensors and minimal cabling filling up every corner of the cabinet. To enable this, I went with a distributed system. There will be 4 nodes, all running on ESP32 boards. To be able to see what our sensors are doing, I'll be using a 2.4-inch Adafruit TFT Featherwing display with an unexpected maker Feather S2 safely tucked on the back. This will be handling all of the UI and data synthesis, so we know what's actually going on inside and outside the enclosure. To manage the sensors, we have 3 Adafruit QT Py ESP32 S3s, 1 for each set of sensors. If they don't have wires though, then how do they communicate with one another? Since the hallmark of the ESP32 chipset is wireless communication, I'll be creating a direct Wi-Fi connection between each of the sensor nodes and the display node. No need to get fully online. But just being able to see numbers on a screen is kind of secondary to what we actually want to do with this sensor data. Automate things. The sensor that will be the star of the show is the BME680, a lovely little multitasker that measures temperature, humidity, pressure, and most importantly, the VOCs that Resin and IPA give off. To complete our sensing setup, I'll also be using a particulate matter sensor, which will keep an eye on dust and debris. And to actually control the fan itself, I'll be adding on this little 0 to 10 volt I2C DAC breakout. To make the magic happen, the main sensor stack slots into this hole in the backsplash, so there can be both rear-facing and inward-facing sensors on the same microcontroller. The inward-facing sensors are monitoring the active conditions of the enclosure and using this to dictate the speed of the fan via the 0 to 10 volt control. The second node, with sensors identical to the first, will live outside the enclosure somewhere in my workshop. The final sensor node is tucked inside the filter box with the sole purpose of telling us when those big panel filters are too clogged up and need swapping out. Finally, the display will be mounted up at the front in clear view with easy access for screen poking. The control system will be running at all times, telling the fan what to do. When nothing is happening inside the cabinet and the air quality is normal, the control node will set the fan to a low speed to maintain consistent pressure throughout the enclosure. When VOCs or particulates are detected though, the fan speeds will rise accordingly, keeping in line with the level of contaminants that the system detects. As a final quality of life feature, the system will also use a comparison of VOC levels and pressure to determine when the filters are clogged or the carbon is saturated, sending a notification as a reminder to change it all out. All I gotta do now is get these nodes in position and power it up from this handy little USB hub, and I'm ready to finish up the installation. It's time for ventilation. This is our carbon filter. This is probably easily the most important part of this cabinet. This is genuinely what's going to filter all of the VOCs, all from the resin, from the IPA, from paint, and so that's why it's big and chunky. If you think a giant carbon filter needs a giant fan, then you might in fact be wrong. This Rhino 6-inch Ultra EC fan is more than powerful enough to pull air through our carbon filter and then some. There is one more thing that the enclosure is missing, and that's actually the enclosure part of the enclosure. And for that, I need copious acrylic panels. Obviously, I can't be cutting my own acrylic in this tiny workshop, so a huge thanks to cutmy.co.uk for actually providing me with all of the acrylic panels that I need to actually complete this project. This is super helpful, so let's finish this up. Groovy. So, this alley doesn't realize it yet, but this right here was a mistake. The original plan was to use solid ducting between the fan and the carbon filter, and this would in turn support this piece of MDF, which seals off our filter box. But to make things easier, I switched to this flexible polycarbonate ducting instead, which, as you can see, does nothing to support the MDF panel. So, as a result, the 3D printed brackets couldn't support the panel filters and the MDF panel. Also, in hindsight, this was a terrible way to try and place the brackets. Miraculously, this didn't require a whole redesign of the brackets. Since the MDF was the only piece really missing support, I added on this additional bracket that screws both to the panel and the bottom of the upper unit. We're back, baby. Not too shabby. And we have enclosure. Truly, it's so completely enclosed. The panels are in place, the plenum is sealed, and the machines are safely housed. Before you ask, yes, there are some gaps around the edges. Since the acrylic is a bit flexible, gaps are somewhat inevitable. I decided to add in a couple of acrylic rods for additional stability, but even so, we never wanted this thing to be airtight to begin with. Since the pressure inside the enclosure is always going to be lower than that outside of it, thanks to the constant flow of the fan, air will always be pulled into the gaps rather than escaping out of it. But right now, nothing is flowing. It's time to finally power up the system and put it through its paces. Baby's first steps. First, let's test the display. All right! We have numbers. Since I already plugged in the workshop sensor, we're already getting data for what's going on inside the room. If you tap the screen once, it'll jog over to the next screen where you can see which nodes are connected and the VOCs being sensed inside the plenum. One more tap and you get to the manual mode screen where you can override the automation and just tell the fan to get to it. I'll add the filter sensor node 3 next, and you can see it connect in real time. Before adding node 2, our primary sensor hub, I need to finally plug it into the fan and flash some pressure calibration code to dial in those panel filter alerts. The calibration code cycles through the various fan speeds and records the pressure reading for each of them from both the sensor inside the main part of the enclosure and the one inside the filter box. Once I've got that data, I can edit the alert thresholds for the node 2 code, which should complete our first system boot up. I don't know if you can hear it, but the fans are really going now. There's something deeply satisfying about seeing real numbers on display like this. Now the real question is, does it respond to actual stimuli? Oh, wow, yeah. There's definitely some VOCs in that. Let's see how long it takes to clear. That's not too bad. It's coming down. I want to try it out with some particulate instead. This stick of incense should do the job. Ah, yeah, there it goes. Look at that. You can really see the smoke getting pulled towards the filter. And back down again. Perfect. Testing the filter alerts is a bit trickier, especially for the carbon, as I can't easily access the rear plenum sensor. But let's see if we can trigger the panel filter alert by blocking it off for a bit. I'm not patient enough to wait months for these filters to actually clog, so yeah, manual override. There it is! Amazing. Yeah. So, in theory, everything works. But this cabinet was built for making things, so I need to see what it's like to actually use this the way it was intended, doing an actual resin print and post-processing it. I still need some handles for these doors, making that the perfect first project. I need to get the files ready in preform first, but then there's nothing left but to see if the automation actually triggers when the Form 4 starts up. Wish me luck. So, how was it, you might be asking? I have to say, even knowing that this enclosure technically worked, I still wasn't sure how nice it would be to actually use, let alone how well it would perform. But now that I've done a complete round of resin printing from setup to final polish, I can honestly say that this thing freaking rocks. Not only does this give me the perfect little workstation for unsafe or messy work that actually fits in my tiny workshop, the automation made everything feel effortless and worry-free. The safety aspects of this were obviously the most crucial, and to that end, it performed incredibly. While printing and completely closed up, the VOCs inside the enclosure rose as expected, but were quickly eradicated, while the air quality of the room remained more or less unchanged. Using this thing for sanding and painting is going to take a little practice and getting used to, but it was surprisingly comfortable to use and meant I didn't need to subject myself to uncertain British weather. I'm also happy to report that while I didn't get the moment on camera, this thing appears to be able to repel a furry missile, so it's cat-proof as well. The code for the monitoring and automation is involved, so I'm going to keep an eye on things for a little while to make sure things continue to work as expected, and to keep an eye out for those filter change alerts. I am honestly so excited to finally have a way to safely resin print and post-process in my tiny workshop, and I'm thrilled to announce I'll be sharing the plans, files, and code for this build completely open source. I'm not gonna pretend like this enclosure is the cheapest or easiest to build, but compared to other far less built for purpose options, it's an absolute steal. If you're interested in making your own or even just cannibalizing parts of it for your own version, the GitHub link is in the description. I'm not gonna lie, I still often wish I had a bigger space to work in. At least now, while the space hasn't gotten any bigger, the possibilities definitely have. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have about 3 years of resin printing to get caught up on. Go on now, go make something awesome. I'll see you in the next one. I know.
Oh my goodness.
You can't handle it.
Oh my